analyze the movie The Help by Amalia and Karina.
Skeeter is a white girl, and when she comes back home to Mississippi after college, then she gets a job to do what she loves, which is writing. She's reunited with all her friends, which are all white housewives, and they all have a lot of money. All of these housewives have a maid. They treat them bad. They measure their food and toilet paper, and they all have like separate bathrooms outside the house. They say they make them do this because they say they contain different diseases. The maids basically clean, cook, and raise the children. Skeeter is surprised at how badly maids are treated, so she decides to write a book from their point of view, which will be called The Help. And she asks Aileen, which is one of the maids, to help her. The maid gets too scared because a lot of black people have been killed because of trying to fight for equal rights. Then none of the maids want to participate because they're scared too. When the situation gets worse, the maids agree to participate, and then Skeeter publishes her book. Then the housewives notice that their mates are the ones like saying their stories to Skeeter, but they don't say anything because they want to protect their identity. And at the end, the African Americans in the neighborhood thank Aileen for that book, which makes them realize that there's still hope for a better life. And at the end, Aileen retires from her job after getting fired.
Background: it is a drama directed by Taylor, and it was a movie made by DreamWorks, which is very famous. It aired in 2011 in the US, and it stars Emma Stone, Viola Davis, and Octavia Spencer, which are very recognized actors that draw attention to the movie. It is based on the bestseller book The Help by Catherine Scott. And something that I found interesting was that the main song of the soundtrack is called I Ain't Never, which is a song that was very popular in 1959, and it was sung by Webb Pierce, which was a white man, which I thought it was interesting that even though back then racism was so present, that they would still see the influence of AAVE in the music. The movie is about the 1960s, which is when the American Civil Rights Movement was happening, which is a movement that wanted to eliminate segregation and discrimination against African Americans. It is based mostly in the ideas of Martin Luther King and his very famous speech of I Have a Dream. It's concentrated almost in the South because there was where most of the discrimination was at the time, and where African Americans were treated worse. Some of the things that the African American Civil Rights Movement achieved was that in 1964, the Civil Rights that eliminated segregation when for jobs, so African Americans will have the same job opportunities as white people. Also in 1965, the Voting Rights Act, which allowed African Americans for the first time to vote in the United States. And in 1968, the Fair Housing Act, which allowed, usually they were like black people in neighborhood and white people in neighborhood, and the Fair Housing Act allowed black people to buy a house in a white person's neighborhood if they wanted to. And also in 1968, there started to be more riots, which make white people lose confidence and lose support for the African Americans, because the riots reinforced the stereotypes that African Americans were more violent and more aggressive. The Big Five, the audience is mainly young adults, but it's also just like for everyone, since it is a movie that shows like the reality of what happened before and how African American maids were treated. So it's a movie that everyone can see. The content and theme, we see African American maids fighting for their rights and the way they were mistreated by white households. The tone is serious and criticizing, and also at some parts it's pretty dramatic and tense. Stylistic devices, they use AAVE, which is the language that African Americans use in the movie, and they use different camera angles, and the structure it is amazing. We will analyze 3 different clips from the movie, which no.
Go on and take the things like that. Oh, fine, last little rain. She can go on after dinner, brother, for me. I believe she will work because we were fully graduate. Yes, ma'am? And just what are you doing?
Well, in this clip, we see Minnie getting fired because of using the white people bathroom instead of her bathroom that was outside, even though there was a storm. We see this is a clear example of the dehumanization that these maids went through, since they weren't even allowed to use the same bathroom because they carry different diseases. Also, we see how he despises her and has like so much hate towards African Americans just by seeing her reaction. Like she was like hysteric when she saw that Minnie was using her bathroom. Also, we see that not everyone is as bad. Like for example, Miss Walters, which at first tells Minnie that she can use her bathroom, but when Healy throws out, when Miss Healy throws out Minnie, she doesn't really do anything, so she's like a bystander who doesn't really help. And also we see that there is a complete lack of empathy towards, from white people towards African Americans. Like we see that she kicks her out in the middle of the storm, and I don't remember very well, but I think that after that scene, it says that several people died during the storm. Also, we see the use of pathos because that clip makes the audience feel sorry and have compassion towards Minnie. The mood of the clip is very dramatic because we see, especially when we see Minnie getting out of the house under the storm and being thrown out of her job.
This is the second group.
Baby, get back to bed. I got to, baby. I am so sorry.
Are you going to give another little girl?
No, that's not the reason. I don't want to leave, but it's time for me to retire. You're my last little girl.
No!
Baby, baby, I need you to remember everything I told you, okay?
Okay.
You remember what I told you?
You is kind. You is smart. You is smart.
That's right, baby girl.
Don't go, baby.
Oh, that's the baby. You can must recall a chance. Mobley was my last baby. In just 10 years, the only life I know is done. God says we need to love our enemies. It's hard to do. But it can start by telling the truth. No one had ever asked me what it felt like to be me. Once I told the truth about that, I felt free.
Okay, in this clip, Aileen gets fired after being quickly accused by Mrs. Healy of stealing some forks. And this is all because Mrs. Healy wanted her to be fired because she had like a story in her book, which will embarrass her a lot, so she was trying to get rid of all the maids. In this case, we can see the stereotype of how the housewives in this neighborhood that their friends manipulate them, and there's a lot of peer pressure. For example, Mrs. Leafold didn't want Evelyn to go, but Mrs. Healy was pressuring her, so she had to let her go. Then we can see another stereotype, which is the maid raising the children. As you can see, May Mobley didn't want Evelyn to go, and in another part of the movie, May Mobley's, after being punished, said to Evelyn that she was like her real mom. And then the tone is really dramatic.